She accused a calm older black woman of carrying a fake passport, tore it in half in front of everyone, and had no idea she was the FAA inspector sent to audit her gate. The automatic doors slid open at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, and in walked Ms. Lovin Holloway. No entourage, no visible badge, just a 70-year-old woman in a navy windbreaker, tailored slacks, and polished loafers, a soft black leather briefcase gently swinging at her side. Her silver hair was tied neatly, her posture straight, and her eyes sharp. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. To the crowd, she looked like any other elder traveler, moving through the world with quiet grace. But beneath that grace was purpose and power. For over 30 years, Lovin had served with the FAA. She started her career writing aircraft maintenance protocols, but over time, her role shifted. Because the real danger wasn't always in the air. Sometimes it was on the ground, and the patterns she saw, they couldn't be ignored. Reports of black and brown passengers being harassed at specific gates, stopped, questioned, delayed, denied, without reason, for complaints in 2 months, all tied to the same concourse, same gate. So Lovin went herself. No TSA escort, no uniform, no warning. This wasn't a scheduled visit. It was a live audit. She watched as she moved. Quiet, steady, alert. Not for drama. For behavior. For bias. She noticed who got waved through without a second glance. Who got questioned. Who got the side eyes. And who got the smiles. She ordered a coffee. The barista smiled nervously. Flying domestic or international today? International, she said gently, lifting her Americano. Nice. Where to? Toronto. You been before? A few times, she smiled faintly. I always learn something new. But today, she wasn't focused on Toronto. Her eyes were set on Gate C-14. The walk there was slow and deliberate. Every interaction noted. Every glance counted. When she arrived, the gate was moderately full. Families, business travelers, earbuds in, eyes on screens. No one knew they were in the middle of a federal audit. Behind the counter stood a woman in narrow glasses and bleached blonde hair, typing furiously into the gate system. Name tag, S. Wilcox. Lovin stepped forward politely, passport in hand. Good afternoon. Just checking in for the Toronto flight. Ms. Wilcox didn't look up. Passport. Lovin handed it over calmly. The woman stared longer than usual. Her fingers paused. Then, you sure this is yours? Lovin blinked. Yes. This doesn't look right, she muttered. Lovin stayed quiet. She was used to this kind of scrutiny, used to the suspicion landing before her words did. What's your reason for travel? Business. What kind of business? Transportation. The agent tapped her desk. I need to verify this. Step aside. Without protest, Lovin moved to the side and leaned gently against a column. She watched. Quietly. The agent shook her head, cast glances to the passengers behind her. One of those, can you believe this woman? Looks. Then, she processed the next few travelers. A white man in a Harvard hoodie, smiled, cleared in 5 seconds. Next, another smile. Next, a laugh. Each one faster, each one more pleasant. Lovin waited 5 minutes, then stepped forward again. Excuse me, has my document been verified? Still typing, Wilcox didn't look up. Then, sighing loud enough for heads to turn, she finally did. I'm gonna ask you again. Are you sure this is your passport? Lovin's voice remained calm. Yes, I am. This photo doesn't look like you. A woman nearby glanced up, looked at the photo, looked at Lovin, then frowned, but stayed silent. It's a current passport, Lovin said. Issued last year. Where were you born? Wilcox asked. Baltimore. Middle name? Elaine. Tap, tap, tap. This looks fake anyway. And then, she tore it. In half. A gasp behind Lovin. Another whisper. No way. The pieces landed like trash on the counter. You'll need to wait for airport security, Wilcox said coldly. You might be detained for attempting to travel with forged documents. Levin stared at her. Repeat what you just said. You heard me. Phones were coming out. People were watching. Then a woman behind the divider, filming, spoke. He didn't even raise his voice. He just asked about his passport. Step back, Wilcox barked. Another voice chimed in. A Delta crew member in uniform. Is there a problem here? I have a potential forgery case. Already destroyed the document. You tore up her passport, the man asked, stunned. It was fake. He turned to Levin. Do you have another form of ID? Levin opened her briefcase, pulled out a federal badge, didn't hand it over, just showed it, long enough. The man blinked. Are you with the FAA? Her voice, still soft. Wilcox froze. I'll need the names of every gate staff member on duty, Levin said. Silence hit the gate like a pressure wave. Wilcox's mouth opened, but no words came. You just destroyed the passport of a federal inspector, Levin added, and made public accusations, without cause. I suggest, she said gently, you call your supervisor now. But the damage was done. Phones were raised. Voices were rising. She really tore it. She FAA. Oh, this finna go viral. And still, Levin stood, composed, calm, still holding the room with nothing but presence. She didn't yell, didn't threaten. She didn't have to, because the truth had already entered the room, and it was being recorded. I've been asked to escort you to the terminal office while we sort this out, Officer Koenig said. Ms. Levin Holloway gave him a tight, unreadable smile. Am I being detained? Koenig paused. No, we just need to clarify a few details. Then I'll walk, she said softly, rising to her feet. They moved down the hallway. Levin, flanked by Zone Supervisor Nicole Morales and Officer Koenig, headed toward the security wing tucked behind the main concourse. Nicole kept glancing at her phone. Notifications were coming in fast. She was already falling behind the pace of the story. By the time they reached the terminal office, the room was tense and crowded. A junior supervisor stood near the desk, gripping 2 printed pages. A legal advisor whispered frantically in the corner. Stress hung in the air like static. Levin opened her briefcase again, slowly, precisely, and pulled out a thin folder. She placed it on the table. Inside, 4 complaints, 4 names, 4 dates, all filed with the FAA. Each described the same pattern. Travelers stopped, treated with suspicion, dismissed without cause, all at Gate C-14. Nicole stepped closer and scanned the top page. Her jaw clenched. Why wasn't this flagged earlier? She asked, voice low. Levin took her time before answering. Because this wasn't about getting someone fired. It was about finding out if the problem was real. A staffer entered and whispered in Nicole's ear. Her expression shifted. What is it? Levin asked. The video, Nicole replied. One of the passengers filmed the incident. It's already on 3 national news accounts. Levin leaned back slightly. That was fast. Too fast, Nicole muttered. The legal advisor, still on the phone minutes ago, now looked like she'd aged 5 years. This may go federal by tomorrow morning, she said quietly. Levin glanced at the wall clock. 11 a.m. Not even 2 hours since she'd entered the terminal. Officer Koenig stepped forward. We reviewed the security footage. It confirms your account. You stood calmly, answered all questions, never raised your voice. I know, Levin said, but thank you for confirming. Nicole cleared her throat. Do you want to file a formal complaint now, or wait for the FAA investigation to proceed? Levin looked up from the table. You should be more worried about what's already been filed, because this isn't isolated, and you know it. While they scrambled to contain the story behind closed doors, the public was already deciding where they stood, and they weren't waiting for press releases. Levin wasn't in that office for apologies or explanations. She was there to document and make sure what happened at Gate C-14 couldn't be erased. Nicole Morales now stood near the corner, her blazer folded on a chair, sleeves rolled up like someone who realized too late. that she wasn't just part of the staff anymore. She was part of the story. 2 more senior staff had arrived. Earl Bronson, a regional operations manager, pulled from a lunch meeting 2 terminals over, and Lana Feld, Southeast Division Legal Counsel. No expression, every word polished, no warmth behind them. "We are fully committed to investigating this incident," Lana said, "and working with all relevant federal agencies." Levin sat with legs crossed, her federal badge resting plainly on the table. "I'm sure you are," she replied. "But let's be clear, this wasn't a misunderstanding. Your gate agent destroyed a government-issued passport in public and accused me of carrying forged documents, without protocol, without cause." Earl tried to interject. "We understand. Emotions were running high." Levin cut in, her tone unchanged. "Mine weren't." The room fell silent. Nicole quietly reached into a drawer and pulled out a slim envelope. She slid it across the table. "The 2 halves of your passport, for your documentation." Levin looked at it, didn't touch it. "Thank you," she said. Lana leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Holloway, are you planning to pursue legal action?" "I'm not here to talk about lawsuits," she replied. "I'm here to complete my audit." That shifted the air in the room. Reality was settling in. Levin pulled out a printed report from her folder. "I'll be submitting this to FAA Internal Affairs today. It includes a full account of this incident, staff behavior, gate surveillance, and supervisor response." She looked around the table. "It also includes a pattern of traveler complaints from the past 8 months. 5 involved Gate C-14. 4 involved Ms. Wilcox." Nicole winced. Earl cleared his throat. "We weren't aware of that trend." "That," Levin said calmly, "is part of the problem." The silence was long and sharp. Finally, Lana spoke again. "If we arrange a follow-up meeting with HR and the Diversity and Inclusion Division, would you be willing to join that conversation?" Levin tilted her head ever so slightly. "Your departments are welcome to do their part, but my job is to report facts, not to help you write a better press release." Nicole rubbed her forehead. Outside the office, the noise hadn't died down. Another staffer entered with a tablet. Trending video feed. Live. Levin Holloway's encounter. 2.7 million views. CNN. Channel 5. NBC Atlanta. All tagging the airline. "I'm not available for comment," Levin said quietly, rising from her chair and closing her folder. She looked once more around the room. "You have a window to make this right. It won't stay open long." Nicole followed her to the door. "Where are you heading?" "I'll finish my route. Then I return to D.C. tomorrow morning." Nicole looked like she wanted to apologize, but the words never came. As Levin stepped back into the terminal hallway, a woman with a baby gave her a small thumbs up. A man nearby nodded in quiet respect. Levin didn't return the gestures, not out of pride, but because she knew this wasn't about her anymore. This wasn't just about one gate agent. This was about every face that woman had made uncomfortable, every voice that had been silenced, every quiet injustice no one filmed. Until now. She said it to a co-worker while scanning boarding passes, half under her breath but loud enough to echo. Funny how quiet people get when someone important gets treated the way we get treated all the time. Her co-worker, a young guy named Rico, looked over. "You ever work with her?" "Wilcox." Denise Trammell, who'd been at that airport over 15 years, gave a slow nod. Had to work next to her twice. You could feel it, like the rules changed, depending on who was standing in front of her. Rico's brow furrowed. Why didn't anybody say anything? Denise met his gaze. Who would have listened? That question stuck in Rico's head all day. Meanwhile, the airline's legal department launched a full audit of gate agent records going back 5 years. Several names were flagged. One in Miami who had been quietly transferred after a string of passenger conflicts. Another in Dallas with a pattern of randomly selecting young men with dual citizenships. None of them had made headlines. But after Wilcox, those days were numbered. Levin received an email from a former airline employee who'd seen the video. Subject line, Wish I'd said something when I had the chance. The message was short. I worked next to her for 6 months. You were right to write it all down. Thank you. Levin didn't reply. She just saved it to a folder on her laptop labeled testimonies. Because what mattered now wasn't just what had happened. It was what people were finally willing to say out loud. 1 week after the incident, Levin Holloway stood at a podium in a quiet D.C. conference room. She wasn't there to grandstand, but the room was full. Transportation leaders, FAA investigators, civil rights observers. Reporters had shown up too. The story had grown too big to contain. She adjusted the mic. I wasn't trying to make an example out of anyone, she began. Voice calm, controlled. I was doing what I've done for nearly 30 years. Quietly observing the systems are supposed to keep us safe. And every now and then asking if they still deserve our trust. She let that hang in the air for a moment. When a gate agent tears up a passport, because they don't like the look of the person holding it, that's not just misconduct. That's negligence. That's bias. And when it goes unchecked long enough, it becomes policy, even if no one writes it down. The room was still, silent. Levin looked down at her notes. She'd rewritten them 3 times. There was no spin left in them. Just truth. People keep asking me if I forgive her. I don't know. That's not the point. The point is, are we finally ready to change how things are done? Only one reporter was allowed to ask a question. She stood, notebook in hand. Ms. Holloway, do you believe anything will actually change? Levin didn't rush. I believe people are watching now, she said softly. That's a start. Back in Atlanta, change had begun, even if slowly. A new memo had gone out that morning. Gate agents would now be subject to random FAA observation. Supervisors would be held directly accountable for repeated complaints. Stephanie Wilcox? Terminated. Access revoked. Flagged across all airport systems nationwide. In the break room, 2 agents stared at the policy update, scrolling across the mounted screen. Think they're going to make us sit through another seminar. One muttered. The other, Tanya, older, seasoned, shook her head. They can run all the trainings they want, but until they hire folks who treat people like people, nothing's gonna stick. A supervisor overheard as he walked in. You got something to say, Tanya. She looked him square in the eye. I already said it. He didn't say another word, just grabbed his coffee and walked out. That same morning, Levin was back at her desk in D.C. Simple office, chipped coffee mug, shelves filled with binders, older than some of the interns. Her inbox overflowed with interview requests. She deleted most without reading. She wasn't chasing a spotlight. She was still focused on the one thing that mattered, fixing the system from the inside. That afternoon, she joined a Zoom call with FAA field inspectors. Small squares filled the screen, faces from Detroit, Seattle, Tampa, Phoenix. Some old colleagues, some brand new. Wanda Kim opened the meeting. Let's go around, she said. Tell us one thing you saw this week that gave you hope. Levin didn't go first. She listened. In Philly, one said, an agent apologized to a passenger after grilling them too harshly. I haven't seen that happen in 17 years. In Dallas, another added, a gate team pulled one of their own aside, told her to dial it back. Used to take a supervisor for that. When it was Levin's turn, she spoke slowly. Hope doesn't come from policy. It comes from people being willing to speak up when something's wrong. And now that the public's seen what wrong looks like, they are finally asking the right questions. She paused, then finished. My job was never to embarrass anyone. It was to shine a light in the corners where things get ignored. Outside, the D.C. air carried a soft spring chill. Kids walked home from school. Traffic pulsed like any other weekday. But for the first time in a long time, Levin felt something shift. Like maybe, just maybe, the silence had been broken for good. But breaking the silence wasn't enough. Now they had to decide what they'd do with the noise. 2 weeks later, Levin returned to Atlanta. Not undercover this time. No briefcase. No quiet assignment. She just wanted to see it. Gate C-14 looked the same on the surface. Same dull carpet. Same plastic chairs. But something was different. Subtle. Staff walked with more awareness. Interactions felt more present, more careful. She saw an elderly woman ask about a delay. The agent didn't sigh or wave her off. He leaned in, listened, explained. Another man, nervous and sweating, asked if he was at the right gate. A staffer walked him to the screen and checked it with him. Twice. Lovin sat near the corner, just watching. No notepad, no camera, no agenda. At one point, a young black couple with a baby approached the counter. The gate agent smiled, cooed at the baby, then helped them board early, without them even asking. 15 feet away, a woman snapped a picture. That photo would probably hit someone's timeline that night, with a caption like, "Traveling with kindness today." Lovin didn't document it. She didn't need to. It wasn't for file. It was for her. She rose and made her way toward the exit. Passing the framed airline policy wall, she caught her own reflection. Older, yes, worn in places, but steady. She thought about Stephanie Wilcox, not with rage, but with clarity. Wilcox hadn't done anything new. She'd just finally been seen doing it. Her mistake wasn't just in the action. It was in the certainty that no one would ever question her. Lovin, like so many others, had lived under that certainty for years. As she neared the exit, a man with a cane stepped aside to let her through. They made brief eye contact. He nodded. She nodded back. Outside, the wind tugged at her jacket. Her rideshare idled at the curb. The driver, a woman with long braids, looked in the mirror. "Ms. Holloway." "That's me. You're the one from that video, right?" Lovin gave a faint smile. "I guess I am." The driver was quiet for a moment, then said, "My brother works TSA. He said the airport's been acting real different lately. I think you lit a fire." "I didn't light anything," Lovin replied. "I just didn't let them put it out." They drove in silence, passing landmarks and billboards along I-285. Then the driver said, "People forget that stuff matters. Being seen, being heard, not being talked down to." "They don't forget," Lovin said. "They are just taught not to expect it." At her hotel, the driver asked, "You think things will really change?" Lovin paused, hand on the door. "I think they already are, but only if people keep speaking up, even when it's uncomfortable." That night, in her hotel room, Lovin turned on the news. Another clip, this time from Minneapolis. A passenger questioned at the gate for not looking like his ID. But this time, a supervisor stepped in early, apologized, diffused it. It didn't make primetime headlines, but it made a difference. She closed her laptop, thought about the generations behind her, the ones who board planes someday, without carrying someone else's suspicion. They might never know her name. That was fine. What mattered is that someone had seen what happened and didn't look away, because sometimes all it takes to break a system is one moment of truth, in a place built on routine, one voice that doesn't rise in anger, but stands in quiet certainty, one decision, not to stay quiet anymore. And if you're still watching this story and thinking it was just about a woman and a passport, think again. This was about every moment we let pass, every voice we ignore, every time we tell someone it's not that deep. If this story moved you, share it, talk about it, and subscribe. 4 more true stories that remind us why the quiet voices still matter.